If you're new to cruising, you've probably watched some YouTube videos and you feel well prepared. But are you? I have seen countless new cruisers walk right into some expensive and embarrassing mistakes, all because nobody told them about some hidden cruise rules. And I'm not talking about don't skip the mustard drill. I'm talking about rules that some experienced cruisers learn the hard way. But you don't have to. Because today, I'm giving you 11 cruise rules that will help you avoid some key rookie mistakes. And if you've been cruising for a while, let me know if I missed anything. I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, bringing you the cruise insider information you need to avoid mistakes, save money, and protect yourself so that you can have your best cruise ever. One of the most unusual things that I could not figure out when I first started cruising is why in the world the ship's time could be different from the time at the port of call. Meaning that the ship time might be an hour ahead or an hour behind the time at the country that you're docked at. But this is absolutely the case, and it's an important error that you don't want to make because it could cause you to miss your ship, having to use your own money to get to the next port of call or to get home. A lot of new cruisers don't realize that this is the case, and while they do tell you this on the ship, sometimes with all the commotion and things going on your new vacation, you might overlook it. And you might think you set your cell phone to ship time, but when you get off at the port of call, it might connect to a cell tower in that country and automatically switch the time to that country's local time. This has gotten a lot of cruisers into trouble and caused many to miss their ship. And cruise ships will often do this just to maintain the time zone from the port they left with. They might be hitting one or two ports that are outside of that time zone, but they're not going to change their clock just for that 8-hour stop because it messes with the crew and their schedules. So whenever you get off at a port of call, make sure you know what ship time is. You can turn on your TV on the basic cruise channel. There will usually be a clock with the accurate time, or you can just check with one of the staff when you're leaving the ship. And make sure you either set your watch or rely on your smartphone. Make sure you turn off the automatic time adjustment feature, or just give yourself a big buffer and plan to be back to that ship an hour and a half before the all aboard time. That'll give you plenty of room for error. And this next rule might surprise you, but if you don't know about it, you could be left out. I have been on almost every cruise line, and most cruise lines technically have an official policy about saving chairs. And that is, you can't really be a chair hog. You can't leave your stuff there for more than 30 minutes, in some cases 40 minutes unattended, or they say that they can remove your things. But that rarely happens. So if you're new to cruising and you just think you can walk by at any time and you'll find open chairs because people aren't saving them, that's wrong. People are saving these chairs. Unfortunately, these rules are not really enforced fleet-wide. So while you might be on one cruise ship where you have a couple staff members that are a little more vigilant about watching people and not letting them just leave stuff there for hours, my experience has been, in most cases, people do leave their things there for hours on end, and it's hard to find an open chair. So if you know this going in and you really want a good spot by the pool or in the solarium or wherever it is you want to sit, say during a sea day, your best bet is to get up early and find a chair. Now, I don't recommend just being a chair hog and putting all your stuff there and leaving, but designate one person from your group to be sitting there at all times. And if you have to leave for 10, 15, 20 minutes and come back. That's perfectly appropriate. Or trade with your partner and let them sit there for a while. That way you can find a spot you want, because in the middle of a sea day, especially without the cruise lines really enforcing this chair hog policy, you're going to have a tough time finding a chair that's vacant. While tender ports are less common these days than they were 30 years ago, there are still a number of them out there, especially at some key destinations. like in Belize or in the Cayman Islands. And a tender port is where the cruise ship has to anchor at sea. There's not a big enough dock, or the water's not deep enough for them to get to shore. So you have to take these smaller tender boats that come and pick you up from the ship and take you to the dock on land. Now, if you are at one of these ports, the tenders are prioritized, number one, for shore excursions, and then there's usually a numbering system. So you can't just show up at any time unless you're planning on getting off the ship much later in the day after the rush is gone. So if you want to get off the ship early to do your own excursion or to just walk around the town, make sure you get in line when they're handing out these tender tickets. Typically, they'll do it the day before of the tender port, and it'll be announced in your program if it's delivered to your room, or you can check it on the ship's app on your phone, and it'll be pretty easy to find. That way, once you have your tender ticket, you're all set. Next, I'm going to get to some rules that cost cruisers money, and they don't usually see it coming. But first, if you're looking to book a cruise, we maintain a list of the best cruise deals you can book right now. If you'd like a copy, just comment deals or click on the deals link in our description. Most of the major cruise lines will allow each adult passenger to bring on board one bottle of wine or champagne. Some will allow each adult to bring on two. MSC is the exception I have found, and they don't allow any of it. However, that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be free. There are some rules that catch new cruisers off guard. Now, if you bring on that bottle and you open it up in your room, you're perfectly fine. But if you take that bottle to the main dining room or a specialty restaurant and you plan to have it with dinner, most cruise lines are going to charge you a corkage fee that could range from $15 to $25. In some cases, that could be more than the whole cost of your bottle of wine. If you want to avoid that fee, just always open it up in your room. If you need a bottle opener, you can ask your room steward. They will bring you one for free. They'll even bring you wine glasses for free. And then you can pour the wine yourself and carry those glasses into the main dining room or any restaurant on the ship, and you will be charged nothing for doing that. A couple years back, I was on a cruise and I happened to be next door to some first-time cruisers. They even put these big signs up on their door, "Our First Cruise." And I happened to be on my balcony that first night and started to smell some cigarette smoke. So I just went next door and knocked on their door and introduced myself, and they were very friendly. And they were just out there smoking, thinking that it was perfectly fine because they're outside, but it's not. They had no idea that it was prohibited to smoke out on their balcony. They felt perfectly normal just smoking outside. They weren't doing it in their cabin. But they could have faced hefty fines from $250 up to $500 if they were caught by staff members. It's not only prohibited to smoke in your cabin, but also out on the balcony. There are public smoking areas. Some ships have better ones than others. If you are a smoker, look at MSC. They tend to cater a little bit more toward the smokers. You still can't do it in your room or balcony, but they have some more liberal policies in other areas of the ship. And this next rule is kind of important to plan for. When I first started cruising, there were no automatic gratuities. Everybody tipped in cash. They used to give us these envelopes, and we put the cash in there and write the steward's or the server's name on there and hand it to them, and they'd get their tips that way. These days, it's not like that at all. And it catches some new cruisers off guard because if you're not really paying attention when you're booking the cruise and you don't prepay gratuities, they're gonna be automatically a charge to your shipboard account. And in some cases, if you're not checking it, you could be shocked at the end of your cruise with a bill that's $300, $400 more than you expected because of these gratuities. Know this going in so you can budget for it. And if you prefer to tip only in cash, you can do that, but you'll have to go to guest services and ask them to remove the automatic gratuities and tell them you're tipping in cash instead. What do you think? Do you prefer to tip in cash, or would you rather let the cruise lines handle it? Let me know in the comments below. When I was cruising years ago with small children, I had to visit the cruise ship medical center more than once because sometimes your kid will wake up with a fever and you just need to have them checked out. but it's extremely expensive because the cruise ship medical doctors do not take insurance, and most insurance plans from the US will not cover that visit. These days, those medical charges can range from $200 to $1,000 depending on what you need and what the doctor gives you in terms of medication or relief. The best way to avoid this problem is to purchase a cruise travel insurance policy because they typically do cover the onboard medical center and ship's doctor. Although they don't pay them directly, they will reimburse you for your fees minus any deductible in your policy. I have a link to a travel insurance company that I use in my description if you want to check them out. Next, I'm going to get to a rule that a lot of experienced cruisers learn the hard way. But first, if you would take a minute and subscribe to our channel, hit that like button. It helps us grow and we'll continue to bring you cruise insider information. Decades ago on my very first cruise, I booked all my excursions directly with the cruise line. My wife went to the port shopping talks and only went in the stores that they suggested, staying away from the others as if there was something wrong with them. But after a few cruises, I realized that this is a bit of a scam. All of the stores, for example, that they recommend in their port shopping talks are all paid advertisers. A perfectly legitimate store that doesn't want to pay the cruise line just would not get recommended. It might even be better than the ones they recommend. And when it comes to shore excursions, cruise lines typically charge 30 to 50% more than independent providers. I have links in my description to two providers that I have used, Viator and Shore Excursions Group, which offer virtually the same excursions that the cruise lines do, although with less people, so it's probably a better experience, for a fraction of the cost. And in many cases, you'll be saving hundreds of dollars throughout your cruise if you book independent excursions. A lot of new cruisers forget that once they step on that ship and it leaves the port and gets out into the ocean, they're no longer under that home country's laws. And once they get to a port of call, let's say in the Caribbean, and you step off the ship, you're now in a whole nother country and you're subject to all the laws of that country. And some of them surprise new cruisers. For example, in some Caribbean countries like Barbados or Trinidad, it is illegal to wear camouflage clothing. And if you do, you could be fined or detained. In other countries, it's illegal to have vapes. So you want to leave those on the ship if you're not sure, or make sure you understand the local laws. Just do a little research before you go and you'll be fine. And then just because something is legal where you live in the US doesn't mean it's legal on the cruise ship. All major cruise lines have a zero tolerance policy for marijuana. You cannot smoke it, you cannot bring CBD products in any form, no gummies, nothing like that. Some departure ports are getting tougher on this and making cruisers line up so that a drug-sniffing dog can come by you and sniff your bags before you even get on the ship. And if you do manage to sneak some of that stuff on, you could be kicked off at the next port of call, you could be fined, you could be banned from the ship for life, and even face legal consequences. Now, I know I've mentioned this in other videos and I've read the comments and people tell me they get this stuff on board, and I don't doubt it, but it's a huge risk. And if you're a new cruiser, it's just not worth taking. And when your ship is at sea, it's under maritime law, which means that the captain of your ship has near absolute authority over every person on that ship. If people are misbehaving or doing things they aren't supposed to, the captain has the authority to keep you in your room, detain you, even arrest you. If you get into a minor dispute with security, that could be brought up to the captain's attention. If he thinks you're an unruly passenger, he can leave you behind at the next port of call. It's all at his discretion. Now, this really shouldn't affect anybody who's just going on a cruise to have a good time. But if you've watched any YouTube shorts, TikTok, Facebook, you've seen passengers take it too far, get a bit unruly. And those kind of acts can have consequences that you might not think about back home because the captain has the ultimate discretion. So now that you'll be cruising like a smart cruiser, you might be wondering about that drink package. Is it really worth it? I'll tell you all about that right here.